Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to be going through some interesting stuff today. So let me explain. I saw this tweet today. Can I zoom in? Oh, I haven't got any hotkeys. No hotkeys. Must zoom in. View, zoom. This tweet from Taylor. And yes, you can watch it live. Let me turn the music down to make sure you can hear me okay. So, there's a new pipeline facade in Laravel, and I mean, a lot of us have probably used pipelines before, and they're using them heavily in the Laravel team themselves. There's a new pipeline facade, makes it so much easier to use pipelines. So, I saw this tweet. I saw that they'd added document for it, and I thought, that would make a really cool stream. Let's play with the new pipeline facade and see what's going on. So we've got the docs. As you can see, pipeline facade provides a convenient way to pipe a given input through a series of invocable classes, closures, or callables, giving each class the opportunity to inspect or modify the input and invoke the next callable in the pipeline. What that means is that we can start to perform more complicated logic that is hidden inside a pipeline and pipeline classes. So I've created a brand new Laravel application right here. All I've done is Laravel new and run sail. I've got sail installed. I'm running Docker, so away we go. What we're going to look at doing here is playing with some ideas for pipelines using this pipeline facade here. So what we need to do is let's come over to our main route here. Yes, please, wifey. Sorry, my wife's offering me coffee. That's great. Service with a smile. Right, so because I'm Steve, I like to declare strict types all the time because they are important. So I'm going to do most of the hacking within here today, to be honest. Hack time. So the pipeline facade means that we can start to do some interesting stuff. Now, if we think about what a pipeline is, it's a series of operations that we want to run in an order to achieve some logic. And in the past, I've been looking at a way to encapsulate business logic nicely. So what I'm going to do is in here and create a new processes directory. And what we're going to do is, let's say we have got a business process. And that business process could be to, oh God, what could it be? Ideas, people. Anyone watching? Have we got ideas? What's a good business process? Let's say we submit a form. We want to then save that form, increase some values. We want to do multiple things, right? The kids and the wife are watching. Amazing. So, okay, so I'm going to go for something somewhat basic here. We're going to have an auth process. So let's say we've got a process over here. And then let's say over here we have tasks. Then our process, let's say we've got a auth process called authenticate. Hello, Junior. So in this authenticate, let's say we go public function handle. Hello. Knocky knock door door. Aha. Coffee. Ah, fantastic. Thank you. That's Amy's hand. So for now, we're just going to return void. This will change. Let's take this idea using a pipeline of we want to be able to do X, Y, and Z. So let's say that we've got an array of tasks. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to return pipeline. We want to send, let's just give it an array for now. Return that, remove that. So this is going to return mixed, which is fine. What I'm going to do is install a quick package. Install my Laravel. Ooh. It's not installable on Laravel 10 yet. Okay. We can work around that. Contracts. Processors. We're going to have a task contract. This doesn't actually need anything in it. So what this is going to be, this is going to be an array of int tasks. So we're going to send all of our tasks through this. There's our task contract over there. And then we're just going to have a data object contract, which again will be an interface. This isn't actually going to have anything on it either. It's just something for us to know. So when we handle this, so we want to pass our payload through these tasks. So the task itself, hey. Pipeline helper. Nope. They just have to be invocable, don't they, really? Invocable classes, closures, or callables. So this task needs to have an invocable. Public function invoke. We'll just return next. And what's going to be passed into here is going to be a data object with a payload, I believe, or unless that goes through to the constructor, I can never remember. And then a closure for what is next. So, why use contract in your file name interfaces? So that's just something I picked up from Laravel. So if you look at this pipeline here, here's a pipeline, implement pipeline, namespace, eliminate contracts pipeline. Laravel uses contracts here for its naming conventions when it comes to interfaces. So that is why I do it. Why is that frozen? So back to this. Just turn my heater off because it is getting hot in my office. There we go. So this authenticate here. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to validate input. Then we're going to want to authenticate the user. And let's say that. So let's say that is our process, right? So inside tasks, I have no idea if this is going to work, by the way. So new PHP class, validate input. This is going to implement the task contract. So method stub, away we go. So we should probably use a validator. Make. So if we come to this, we can add a array here. So when we make, we're going to want the data to be payload to array. The rules we can just set out as required string and password. This isn't like exact what I would do. So a validation exception with messages, where the messages is validator messages. What's that going to do? Message bag to array. Cool. So we're validating here. We're going, okay, so create a validator. I realistically would do this in a controller, but this is just to give you an idea of what you could possibly do. So then we're going to validate, and then we're going to say return next, passing in the payload. So we're going to then validate the input. Great. Next, let's have a look at this authenticate user. Let's go new PHP class, authenticate user. This is going to implement the task contract again. So this may have to be refactored because I've not really looked at it properly. This is just me, being me. So at this point, we know we've got valid data. So we can just say user auth facade. And we could probably say if auth attempt credentials array. So we'll just get the payload and we'll say to array. If it doesn't, then we're going to throw another validation exception. Messages. The messages is going to be on the email, and we're just going to say authentication failed for now. This doesn't have to be like an exact thing right now. This is just, let's have a play. If that is all good and we've authenticated, then we can just return next, passing in the payload. And then come back to here and we can say import, return a JSON response. So this last one here can just be like new PHP class, return JSON response. We're going to implement the task contract at the method stubs. So at this point, we just want to say, okay, so return new JSON response. The data is something, and the status is, let's just come down here, response, HTTP, okay. Let's leave out of that for now. And that's all good. So then we can come back here, we could say, import that. So that when we come to here, we can say, let's say that we want to say that the process that we want to use is going to be a new authenticate process. And then let's say we want to return process handle with a payload. Let's just create something in here, data object, auth, login, data object contract, add those method stubs. This is going to return an array of email, password. Our constructor will need this public function construct. And what we need is a private read-only string for the email and a private read-only string for the password. Then down here for the email, we can just return this email, this password. That is all looking good. So when we come back here, we can say that the payload is a new login. And for this, we're just going to say email is test@user.com, and the password is password. So now if I do that, where's that highlighted? Okay, in lineup. Simplify that, ignore that. So what I'm going to quickly do is come down to my database seeder here, and I'm just going to say, I want that. Test user, test@user.com. The password, good to go. Let's just simplify that one. So now I can sail artisan migrate seed. Awesome. Let's go into Tinker and make sure that we have our user before we do this. So app models user first, test@user, good to go. So now we come here and we refresh, we might be getting an error. Let's come down to our error logs down here. No, nothing's going on. Okay, so authenticate, pipeline send through pipes. On this one, let's have a look at saying I dump here. So we're hitting that point. We're hitting that point. Next one. Are we getting here? We are getting there. We are getting there. Then on authenticate, return JSON response. We are getting there. So we're getting that JSON response. So down here on the web, handle. Oh, wait a minute. That might be right. Authenticated. So, not bad, right? That works. So let's just close a lot of this down and let's come back and walk through this. So what we've got now is these business processes using the pipeline facade. Right, here's our auth business processes. You know, we want to be able to authenticate. Great. So what happens if we move this to a controller? So make controller auth login controller invocable. Done. So then if we come down to this web here, let's just grab this and say nope. This bit here, login controller. Let's just use that for now. And here we go, handle the incoming request. So we could say public function the construct for our constructor. So we could have a private read-only authenticate for the business process that we want to do. And what we want to do is say, actually, let's just return this process handle, and the payload we want to use is a new login payload where we're just doing this. Relatively simple. And what we're actually going to return is a JSON response. We know that's going to return a JSON response because it's the last step in our pipeline. So our login controller is suddenly super simple, which is quite interesting. So let's go have a look and make sure this still works. And it does. So how can we test this? That's the important thing, right? Can we test this? Is this a testable approach? Well, we can test each step quite easily. And we can test this as a whole and say, okay, so does this do what it's meant to do? Does this validate the input? Does it authenticate a user? And does it return a JSON response? Does this return what I expect it to return when I pass it that data object? Because, I mean, we could change this to a login, really. So we're passing the login through. Can't really do that. Shame. So that's kind of cool. That didn't take me long to do. So what are the benefits of this, and how could we look at using something like this in our application? So me being me, I build APIs, right? It's kind of like what I do. So let's have a look at this. What I'm going to do, take out my chewing gum quickly. I apologize. I need some coffee. So if we go to other examples and we say, okay, so that's cool. We know we can perform a couple of tasks, hide some logic. We could share some logic. Like some of these tasks, like let's return a JSON response. This is something, you know, we could share quite easily. It could be part of that data object there. So if we take another example, let's say, okay, we're going to have another route, and what we're going to do is route get cache, and I'll create something for that. So a make controller and cache users controller. I mean, this is a really random example, for example. So, okay, so what can we do with this? This cache users controller. So a process, let's say we're going to go to, we've got a users process, and let's go processors, and we're going to have a cache all users. So this needs to have a public function handle where it accepts a data object. That's a payload. And it's going to return mixed for now. This will return pipeline facade. We want to send the payload through, then return. So private read-only array tasks is an array. There's got to be a nice way to do this, right? So when we want to cache all users, what we want to do is we want to say, I don't know, let's say fetch all users. Hash data. Then return my JSON response. So, you know, tasks here. So we're going to want a PHP class called fetch all users, public function. Wait a minute. Let's delete that. Let's add the task, add the stub. So here's our data object, and what we're going to want to do is say, okay, so payload we want to set something like this. I don't know. So our payload, we want to set users. So the property is going to be users, and the data is going to be user query get done. Return next, passing through the appended payload. So let's just import that and cache data. That could be like a shared process. We'll keep it in here for now, a shared task, but we'll keep it in here for now. Cache data, public function. Keep doing this one. This is very new. This is something that I'm like testing an idea for. So we're going to implement the task contract, add the method stubs, what we're going to want to do is return cache. Remember, key, payload, cache key. This is going to be specific at that point. The TTL, we're just going to say like that long. And the callback is going to be payload to array. This can be static. So we're caching the data. Then we can say return next payload. So we've now cached that data, port, and returning a JSON response. So let's just, without testing, let's just go have a look and say what's going to happen. Let's go look at our storage logs. We're failing at something, which is fine. Class login contains one abstract method. Okay, so let's go to login quickly. Set. Cool. So what we want this to be is we want to cache stuff. Login, we don't care about right now. Data objects, users, cache users. I mean, this isn't like perfect, exactly what I want it to do. Set. So we also need to get a cache key. So public function cache key. Going to return a string. Return users all. Not really anything we need to add to the constructor this second. So there we go. I don't know if this will work because it's dynamic properties, PHP 8.1, 8.2 may not work. So here, what we're going to want to do is say public function construct. Import that process itself, so we can have a private read-only cache all users process, return this process handle where the payload is going to be a new cache users object, and that is it. So what happens here? It's getting that back, it's getting authenticated back. So if we come back to this kind of JSON response, for this we're just going to do payload to array actually, just to test it. We've got an empty array, which is great. Yeah, that was 35 minutes of stuff that I didn't think I'd do so easily. So what would be useful to people watching? Be handy to know. Let me know, let me know. Any particular reason beyond readability why it adds a static keyword to most closures? Readability. Habit, I guess, as well. Like if I come back to one, cache users, where did I have it? It wasn't that long ago that I had it. I just can't remember where I did it. Cache data. Here, callback. So I can declare this as a static closure because I'm not using this. So if I just said this in there instead, toArray doesn't exist. So let's just pass through like this. That shouldn't be static at that point because we're using an object context. It's out of scope, basically. But it just means that, where was I? If I know I'm going to change anything within a closure and I use this, it's telling me, okay, this is no longer static. So do you want to do it this way? Basically, little things like that just force me to kind of think about what I'm doing. Just like final classes, you know, I use final classes all the time because it makes me think about extension. What is a pipeline? So a pipeline is a sequential list of tasks that you want to run through in an order. So let's build a really simple example for this one, actually, just to explain it for you. So we're going to say root get count. For this, we're going to return using the pipeline facade. We're going to send this through. So let's do that. So if I now come over to here and go to count, we got an amount of 0. So that's not what I want. I want to send this through. This is basically just an array of closures. So I can say we're going to accept an array of the payload through, as well as a closure here for what is next. This really needs to be a function, not that. So what this is then going to do is it's going to say, okay, so first one is payload amount plus next passing through payload. So with any look, that is now 1. So let's say we repeated this. The unexpected function now 3. Yeah, I can give you a quick summary. So basically what I've done so far is walk through using the pipeline facade. what pipelines are, why you might use them, and how you can use it to kind of build more complicated logic through classes, basically. I'll run back through it and we can go from there. And yeah, think of us, that's exactly it. If you've ever used middleware in Laravel, that's basically a pipeline. So what I've started with this login controller is we build out this process called authenticate, which basically just goes, okay, so send this payload data through these pipes and return. So what I've been able to do is validate my input, authenticate a user, then return a JSON response, all from one controller that looks like this. Yeah, realistically, this would be a request get and a request get, and would build it out that way, or this would be like a request validated, and this process wouldn't actually have a validation step in it because we've got validation already. But basically, it's a way that we can start to build out these business processes using pipelines really nicely. So how could we take this further, and what could we do with it? Like, we've got a nice, easy way to count. Not the most useful. I understand that one. We've got caching users, where we're just going to fetch all the users. Then we're going to cache that information and then return a JSON response, and that's all we're doing. And then obviously we've got this count going on here. So what would be useful for you to see and understand about pipelines that would help? So if we look at the docs, we're just sending a user through a couple of closures and then getting the user out the other end of it. So we can get the user, we can modify the user. You don't always have to return. That is the beauty of pipelines, is that you don't have to always return that. You can perform an action right at the end, which is kind of cool. And you can assign a value to be something. So you can kind of add it as a part of your process, as your workflow, without fully adopting it if you don't want to. So let's have a look at another example, perhaps. Let's say we have a route. I'm only using get request. I'm just using the browser to play around with it. That processes some input and removes bad words, replaces links and removes script tags. Yeah, you could build a pipeline like that quite easily. I won't go through that because that's going to be quite far off over this way, going through regex and string manipulation when I'm trying to focus on the pipeline element right now. And regex is not my strong suit at all. So let's say, I don't know, we want to view a user, for example. So make controller, let's go users controller. We're just going to have an invocable for now. Exactly, yeah, filtering a query is another perfect one, but there's actually a really good package for that. So I probably wouldn't build that myself. So let's say we're going to view a specific user here. So we're just going to go like, we're going to get the first user. We know we've got one. So this would typically be something like you'd bind it into root model binding, and this would come through as an argument. So ignore that line. That line didn't exist. So we've got a user now, right? So let's just time dump on this user quickly. So let's say we view. We've got a user. It's great. Look, user, perfect. And what do we want to do? What we kind of want to do is build a process around this. So let's come down to our processes. Here's our users. We're going to have a new process. This process is going to be user viewed process. This is going to have some tasks. So private array tasks. This is going to be handled. So public function handle. Going to have a mixed return type because we're not really sure what's going to be returned. And this is going to return pipeline send something to it. Hey, Ludovic, we're not going to have that. Okay, so what we're going to have this time is we're going to have a string. Okay, we're going to have a user passed in. Passable, let's just send the user through. Then return. So this is likely to change actually. So what I'm going to do is not have a user model. Is I'm going to come over here and users. I'm just going to have a user here. Yeah. Let's just add those method stubs. So they kind of just handle themselves, I believe, on pipelines, if I'm correct. For now, I'm just going to keep this really simple. Return that set. We're just going to return this. This isn't how I typically do it. This is just kind of me hacking. So public function construct. So let's say we're going to have a private read-only int ID for the user. We're going to have a private read-only string for their name and a private read-only string for their email. For this, so we're just going to say, okay, so this ID, the name is this name, and the email is, my keyboard has gone mental. So let's just do that. And what we're going to do, we can change this to public because we're going to want access to it outside, but it's read only, so it should be okay. So here we go, user processed. We're going to import this specific user through these tasks. So that the tasks are going to be, so let's say I'm going to cache the view, notify user. So we're going to cache the view, we're going to notify the user, and then we're going to, that's it, probably. That's probably all we want to do. So let's come over to here, tasks, and we just create a new one. We're going to say, okay, so cache view. This implement the pass contract so we can add those method stubs. We've got the payload and we've got that. So we want to cache the view. So we go say the cache facade. We probably want to get based on the key first. So if I come down here, I can probably do this data object contract, and we can say user. So at this point, we should have a user. So where the key is user views. Get that. Views. Then we could probably do a cache. Let's do a quick forever. The key is this. Value is going to be views and return next. Payload. So, process views, import that, identify user. Let's create that one next. So now we want to notify someone. So what we could actually do at this point is we can dispatch a job if we really wanted to. We want to dispatch that notification sending and return next. Payload. Make a quick job. Make job users notify of view. Cool. So dispatch a new notify of view. We come over to here. What this can accept at this point is probably the user payload that we're actually passing around. So public read only user. Looking good, looking good. So notify a view, user is the payload. Yes. Might be able to do here is force this. There we go. So notify user of view. I don't know, make mail users new view. In our job itself, we can say mail facade to users, this user email, send new mail. New view. Over to here. Don't need a constructor. Don't need that. There's a new view. Contents, view name. Blah blah. Don't think that actually created anything, did it? No, it didn't. Cool. So I'm just sending an email at that point to say, cool, yeah, you got a view. Notify user, port. So our show controller, we can pull this in and we can say public function instruct. That's read only, user viewed, process. And then we can say this process handle new user object where the ID is the user get key, name is user name, email is user email. Should be better. There we go. The view name not found. Okay, so I'm just going to create this quickly. Resources, emails, users. OMG, you're popular. So come back over this mail over here, view name, and this is just going to be like emails dot users dot view. User notified of view. So now if I come over to localhost, I think it's 8025. We got the email coming through, and that was super simple to do, right? Pipeline processes, our controller itself is really clean. If that was using like root model binding, we're just saying, okay, so process this, process that. Then from CLI, we can start looking at the same thing and say, okay, cool. So let's do that. I'll create one. I'll do a CLI command quickly. So a make command users view command. So if I come over to console commands users view, we'll say user view. Test the view user process. In the handle, what we can say is we're going to pull in user view process as a process. We're going to say user is user query first or fail process handle. The user is a new user. The name and the email is user email. Let's just clear some of this up. Like this. So if I just do a PHP artisan user view, PHP, actually no, I need to sail artisan user view, user viewed. Then if I come back to mail pit and come back to delete that one, I've just got another one, so I can delete that. I've got no emails. If I do it again, got the email, and I've not had to write any additional code. That is the purpose of what I'm trying to say. Let's say you need to send multiple objects to the pipeline. How would you handle that? Personally, I would build an encapsulating object for that. So for that specific example, let's say processors, create a random one. Random processors. So let's say that we have a random process here, and we're going to say public function handle to return mixed. So we want to return pipeline. We want to send something passable through some pipes, then return, right? So the pipes are going to be this tasks so here I can say private array tasks. So if I want to send something, multiple things through, what I'd do is I'd create like a specific object. So I'd say, okay, so I'll create something like random. Let's say that this implements that data object contract, which we need for now. And for this, we're going to say return and return this. So for that, I'd go public function construct. I'd say public read-only request. Public read-only user. I'll do it that way. So what we'll end up doing is let's create a task in here, and we're just going to say dump payload. So let's come here and let's say this is just it's going to dump the payload on that one. So the random process, the tasks is going to be dump payload. So when let's come down to our roots here, and let's say root get random. Let's just quickly create a function. This is going to capture the request this time. And we're going to say return new random process handle. That's it. So if we now come up to here and we just say random, we invoke argument one payload must have array given in pipeline. Okay, so random process, this needs to at this point say data object contract payload. We need to pass through the payload at that point. So this actually needs to be random so that when we're coming over to here, our random process, when we're asking it to handle, our payload can be a new random, where the request is the request and the user is this is going to be slightly wrong type because it's going to return a builder, but it's not the end of the world. But that is what I would do. So we've got a request and we've got a user. That's just dumping the payload, and that's how I'd approach that one, Mike. So just create a specific data object to capture what you need. You don't want to pass multiple things in. I mean, you can do. Like if we go look at the docs, you know, we can pass multiple things in if we really want to. As long as we're also passing in a closure, we're okay. But that's how I would personally do it, is to build like this wrapper thing that works for you. Cooking while watching me stream, awesome. Yeah, the documentation's really cool. He did obviously do a tweet about it. Here's the Pipeline Facade, last callable. There's obviously lottery stuff. But yeah, that's pipelines. I don't think I can go into too much more detail, so quite a short stream for me. But what it does give us is a cool idea that we can start to build up these business processes using pipelines, using tasks, bind things how you want in your own way. And you can start passing this data around, and it just really works nicely. So that is pipelines in Laravel. They're really fun, they're really easy to use, can really clean up your code, and you can start to create these really nice kind of shared code that you know that you're going to go through. And much like I wrote when I wrote about the eloquent performance, where you can start to create shared queries, same thing with this. You can start to create these shared parts of logic in your application, and if you're smart enough with your type bindings, then you can start to pass anything through, and it starts to be really flexible, and you can get some huge advantages from your code by doing it this way. And that's the stream for today. I don't think I can go too much more into detail with pipelines. It's not a huge topic, but the process works. We can build out a nice process. These are quite nice and easy to use. What you could probably even do is get this to either extend or to use a contract. So let's say we do this and we say concerns, and we're going to say handles tasks. This can then be a trait. So what we can actually do is we can say something like this. Probably don't want that user, but what we could probably do is say data object contract here. At this point, we can say property read. We have got an array of tasks at this point, and we know that our tasks are going to be int and task contract, and we're good. So that when we come here, we can say use handles tasks, and then we don't actually need that. So then when we come back here, we can say user view and the user reviewed. And suddenly our business processes are really small and really easy to handle tasks. Bang, clean, simple, fun to do. I've been working on this idea for a while, but I never quite got there. I think mostly that was because the Pipeline Facade wasn't documented, and pulling it out the container. It just started to feel really messy the way I was doing it. But with the Pipeline Facade, this really cleans it up, and it's a great way to simplify your code. So thank you to Taylor for documenting that one, and adding the facade, because that's really made my life easier. And as you can see, I can now create single classes for business processes, and I can push them, which is really, really cool, to be honest. So yeah, that is that. One last thing before I go, because my wife would not forgive me for not saying it. She keeps on at me. My wife tweeted a little bit earlier, so I'm just going to share the tweet with you all. She is still doing her mega walk of 100 kilometers. She is absolutely nailing it. Please go find the tweet. I'll share it quickly. Just trying to do what we can to raise awareness for this charity. Like, retweet, donate if you fancy it. You don't feel pressured, you don't have to. But SANS is a fantastic charity. I wouldn't be smiling today if it wasn't for them. So I want to thank you and thank them. Please like and retweet so she can get a little bit more awareness of what she's doing, and the charity a little bit more awareness. Other than that, we've got some really cool content on Laravel News at the moment. But that's me, by the way, if anyone hasn't noticed. This is amazing. Duster just sounds fantastic. Like, when Laravel Pint came out, I was looking at building something like this myself, and I was like, there's so many steps and things that I've got to think about and consider. I was just like, okay, I'm not going to do it right now. I haven't got the time to focus. I'll come back to it. And now they've released this, and just wow, basically. This is going to be so cool. Yeah, go have a look. Just make sure to sign up for the newsletter. There's a link in the description. All of the latest stuff comes directly to your email once a week. You don't get spammed. It's just once a week. Here you go. Latest news, updates, Lara jobs, all that good stuff, all in one go. Other than that, make sure you subscribe, because we will be doing more and more streams. I'm planning a stream coming up soon where guests are going to be involved. So if you'd like to jump on stream with me sometime with Laravel News and go through a package you've built or tutorial that you've written, and you want to kind of walk me through it and walk other people through it at the same time, reach out to me personally at Just Steve King on Twitter. We can organize it and we can get that sorted. And I want to, the Laravel News stream, I don't want this just to be like an extension of my channel. I want this to be the community and the Laravel community joining me on stream. So please reach out to me. Please please subscribe, share the stream, let people know that we're now streaming at Laravel News and we're not just doing written content. And as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting Laravel News. Thank you for being an awesome person in the community. Have a good evening, have a good day, have a good morning if it's early for you. Have a good whatever time it is. And I will catch you again next week. Thank you very much. Have a good time.